All right. What do you want to work on today? Should we hug?
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right. You're back?
Yeah, I guess maybe.
Okay. Let's work on your shoulder stuff quick. You can go on your back.
So
and then
game for that.
we'll flip it around.
Face
Yeah.
up.
Face up, yeah. So, a couple times we've been going through Tim's sternocostal, clavicle into the scapula, all the musculature, so pec major, minor, coracobrachialis, anterior deltoid, joint capsule, subclavius, scalene, sternocleidomastoid. I'm pretty sure there's anterior paraspinal muscles like deep in there, but we're not really focusing on that. More so this like scalenes right up in there. Here, I've got a good idea. Okay, all the way up into the base of the skull, mastoid process. Scalenes are like up in there. And again, the philosophy is always going to be the same. We'll probably say it every time, just because it's if you can understand the why, and the how, like it's a complete paradigm shift from how we view our bodies and how we care for our bodies.
100%.
Right? Like
Yeah.
whoever the first person who invented the toothbrush and toothpaste, right, probably had to do something similar. Like, hey, if you apply this paste to the brush and run water underneath it, and then swish it around your teeth twice a day, it's going to keep your teeth from falling out and
Yeah.
rotting.
It was a root, like an ancient root or something.
Yeah.
That people didn't quite brush their teeth with, but they would use it to clean their
Yeah,
teeth.
see, it's a slow process.
Yeah.
And like the culture of proactive wellness has been building up for a long time, but we're actualizing it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, acupuncture is a modern medical practice that also is ancient.
Of course, yeah.
We don't know where it came from.
Yoga.
Yeah.
And I think chiropractic extends all the way back to like, I mean,
Ancient Greece, right?
I was gonna say Egypt.
Well, that works. That just kind of predates everything pretty much.
I think so. I mean, obviously D.D. Palmer is the inventor or the like
Of like modern
of chiropractic, yeah, but whatever. Anyways, so posterior scalenes,
Oh my god, is that a trap?
no, posterior scalenes. Right up on your first rib right here. Trapezius is like
Oh my god.
up in there. So if we address issues all the way throughout, like joint structures and tissues,
Yeah.
right?
And suspension, like muscle
We're
patterns.
looking for segmental mobility through, I'll say it again, segmental mobility. So like segment by segment throughout this entire structure, we're seeing like elimination of restrictions,
Yep.
reestablishment of joint not joint laxity, joint articulation, mobility, you know what I mean? And then the associated, we talked about this last time, the joint health and the tissue health, they kind of like interplay or whatever, you know what I mean? So we want to see that mobility of all these segments of joints, and then the tissue health, we're just looking for restriction all the way throughout all that stuff.
Yeah.
So if we do that well, in a comprehensive manner, this is where we're moving away from just symptom management or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like trying to get me out of pain to, we're trying to bring your body out of compensation, lack of function and injury to integrity. It's like the tire that wobbles
Yeah.
to now the tire that is,
Just works.
it is flush. Yeah, exactly. And the body is a living system that responds to stimuli every day, right?
Yep.
And so whatever is influencing your body most regularly is the direction it goes. So now this is another huge chunk of the philosophy, right?
Consistency.
This is the why, or the why and the how, eliminating that compensation pattern, and then the consistency, right, is where we help this living system into a new pattern instead of just, anybody who does like orthodontic dentistry or bodybuilding understands that the body requires time to make a change, positive or negative. And we're basically just using that system, that technology for positive. Yep, correction. So that's a long-winded way of saying that we need to just be addressing these things regularly, consistently, and we're going to be seeing that consistent improvement. So, you know, deep compression with a little bit of traction throughout these rib joints up into the joint capsule here.
Where's my bursa in my shoulder?
That's the joint capsule.
Okay.
Actually, if I'm being totally honest, I don't know much about the bursa sacs.
Yeah.
I think it's within the joint capsule.
Yeah. And it's like beneath.
Yeah, like.
Oh my god, my brain's not working.
Like the actual articulation of the joint, you know, it's surrounded by all the ligaments and like muscle attachments, tendons, you know what I mean? But the actual articulation itself is, I'm not exactly sure what it looks like. I know it's the glenoid fossa and the head of the humerus, right? And it's probably within that articulation is the bursa.
Yeah.
Okay, so we move the arm out to change the angles. All this is just kind of like freeing up his scapula and whatever patterns developed into the shoulder joint, scapula, rib cage, clavicle, sternum, this whole thing. And it ties into the spine, obviously. You know, that's funny because does the spine articulate with the sternum? I don't think it does. Right, like the rib cage is an open structure on the front, but it's tied together through the spine on the back side. You know what I mean? But that just points to, you know, like all this stuff in the front side matters for what's happening on the back side.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
The rounding of shoulders and everything.
Yeah.
You do exercises to open up your chest.
Mm-hmm. It helps your back.
Oh yeah.
Hand behind your head. Same kind of deal. Your scapula's feeling quite a bit better. I've been having a lot of fun saying that I now am the proprietor of a blog.
That's cool.
I've maybe said it 3 times, but each time I'm like, oh, that's a weird thing. You know what I mean? Okay, really getting into the belly of that subscapularis muscle. There's a whole bundle of tissue underneath the humerus here. I think there's some like rotator cuff stuff that's part of that, you know what I mean? 32. So just kind of making contact all along that anterior part of the scapula. And then you can even come up in between the tricep and the bicep. You can do some trigger point therapy in the belly of the bicep here.
The tricep and bicep connected by fascia.
I would only assume, yeah. You know, another easy way is just to let the arm hang. You know, pinch the bicep here, and then you can get the pointer finger into the tricep. Yeah. Most people are living with a low-level aggravation in probably every tissue in their body.
Yeah.
It's like if I were to take some random person off the street
And start looking for
and just like palpate, people are like, oh, they think I'm mean, but it's actually I'm just very precise at determining pre-existing aggravation. You know what I mean? So again, this elbow nook, we'll call it, in between the radius and the ulna and the humerus down here.
Feels like you're flossing my nerve.
You know, 2 thumbs on the erector, extensor digitorum. Mobilizing the carpals, just with some compression in. You know, you got the hand on the bottom side, and then you're just kind of moving the thumb all on each of the metacarpals to mobilize there. Compress in that thenar muscle, mobilize the metacarpal here, mobilize joints in the fingers, and now we're ready to, so Tim's definitely got some restriction in his wrist.
Oh yeah. Blacksmithing yesterday was super intense.
Moving energy. Okay, why don't you go face down now? That thing's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm glad I got it.
Okay, so we just were working all along the front side. We could be doing that sitting protocol of just like compression through the upper trapezius, rib cage, rhomboids, levator scapulae, erectors, and the bilateral scalenes. You know what I mean? But we're gonna do this
And I'm certain this thing
prone
ties in.
position. Yeah. So the more time you spend working on patterns like this, you're gonna see the intricate, complex nature of the pattern itself, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
and the unwinding of it.
Yes.
All of the interrelated components that as we apply corrective influence start to change, and then that change causes new influence throughout the rest of the body. It's immensely complex, but the simplistic base of care remains that we're just locating restriction and injury and compensation within specific structures, regional structures, and then the global structure. And as we do that, we're tying in all this process towards integrity and away from compensation.
Working on the whole body.
Exactly. You know, so we could be doing just this deep loosening along the spine and rib cage, the deep musculature of the erectors, 10 weeks in a row itself. But then when we do this anterior and the upper cervical therapies, it's gonna add a new influence in. So we're always gonna be kind of like addressing and readdressing areas, providing that ever increasing upward motion of moving things always better. And we're going to do a little compression deep into the rib cage here. Perfect. Really great motion in the sacroiliac joint here.
Yeah, it just ties up right in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Still so much different than when we,
Oh yeah.
you know what I mean? So we're gonna take the broad, long contact of the ulna and just kind of compress all the way through the rib structures here. It's all about repetition. Okay, and then this, bundle of stuff underneath the scapula here. It's like deep in the rib cage. We're able to address that with this deep compression. You have to make sure that you're locating the restriction though. If you're just doing this in random areas that you're not being very specific as to where a muscle binding or tissue binding is at.
A trigger point type.
Yeah, like if you apply pressure to something that's super bound up, right?
Yeah.
Like it's fine. It's almost like, oh, you could even use more pressure. But if you do it on some place that doesn't have that, that's when you run the risk of injury.
Yeah, I mean, my mid-back where it's super stiff, that is almost like no, right there is almost no sensation at all.
Yeah, right, exactly. Last one, 32. Quite a bit of pressure there.
And I can feel my rhomboids are looser.
All right, last one. So we're, you got the bottom rib, and then you got the ilium here, and then right against the spine is the quadratus lumborum. And again, I'm using that broad edge of my ulna, and you can even kind of roll into the point of your elbow. Last one.
That used to be like totally undoable.
Yeah. So now this would tie into like, okay, we've talked about the sacroiliac and the ilium right here, but all the patterns in and through his hip right here,
And glutes too.
and glutes, yep, all that stuff. He's presented with a lot of unique stuff in his hip, and it's all related into this whole thing. You know what I mean? So we could be very easily just working on this next week, and we very well might. So, all right, Tim.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.